Definitely not the starters. You're on the End of the Bench podcast from 100.7 The Score.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Welcome back. 100.7 The Score. It is the End of the Bench. Rob Breaux alongside Jamie Lynn. But first, we'll have a segment here with John Kurtz, Open for Business, Big 12 podcast. Also stuff with Kansas State, longtime media member there at Kansas State. John's been a friend of the program, has been on the Rob Breaux Show. I think you've been on the End of the Bench with us potentially at least once as well. John, we had some news yesterday. We're going to start with some press conferences from yesterday, the Texas Tech one in particular. I just want the Big 12 perspective. We've talked about the Texas Tech perspective of the Yormark kerfuffle, I'll say.
Yeah.
Where he makes the guy stand up and ask his question again and then refuses to answer the Brendan Sorsby stuff. What's the Open for Business Big 12 perspective? Because you went live last night. You got the pulse, I would say, of the Big 12 fan base, aside from the Texas Tech fans. What was the thought process there on that?
Man, well, first of all, in terms of like how the fan reaction to it seems to be, I mean, it still just seems like everybody in their corner, the 15 against 1 thing. Like, I mean, it's the Texas Tech fans in the chat were, Brett Yormark's a coward and, coming after him very hard. And then you've got the fans that are just like sick of hearing the whining from Texas Tech that very much feel so the fans, it's as you'd expect as far as the fan reaction goes. But if anybody's listened to me for any length of time, I love my nuance, and I think like so many of these things are not black and white. So my take on it, I've seen some, I think even just from talking to like some of my fellow media members, I do think there's a sentiment of people who are like, hey, I do wish Yormark would have said something. Like if you want to say, hey, I'm not going to take any more questions after this, but at least like say something that would have been better. And I can understand that. My original reaction was I came into this like I don't want this whole thing to be dominated by Brendan Sorsby talk. And it's very easy for that to happen if you let it. And so I thought Yormark's strategy seemed to be like, I'm just going to stomp this out as quickly as I can. It was literally the first question to him, right, was about that. So he knows, like, this is what – and it's like I am not about to let this just dominate the narrative for a couple days when we've got a whole conference full of teams here. I want the spotlight to be on that. So I understand where he's coming from when he says, like, hey, this isn't really the time or place. I also understand people saying, well, what is then if that's the deal? But I think we got more or less the answer. I know he was not actually quoted in the Ross Dellinger story, but I think that was the Big 12 strategy. It was like, hey, we're not going to do this out in the open in front of everybody. But Ross was here. I'm sure they knew Ross was going to be here. I actually think that's kind of a savvy strategy. Like, we're going to give him the story. He'll get the scoop on the story, which, of course, now we know, thanks to that great reporting, is that they met last Tuesday and there have been some meetings and they feel like they're making progress, at least on the relationship there. That story, more or less, is an admission of, like, hey, there's some tension here. I was just glad yesterday, before I read the Dellinger story, that Yormark was not going to let him. Because if you start to answer questions, here, the problem, I think, is if you start to answer questions, people then are going to be like, they're going to say, okay, well, you responded to that. Now I have a question to play off of that. And you can see how it would very easily just roll over into, like, every question becomes about that. I think that's what he was trying to avoid. Now, the other thing I will say is, I think there's the thing I wish he would have been asked, like just straight up, is the best question to me was, hey, Brett, like, I think the best point Tech fans have made this whole time is, what about Cincinnati? I know we're all like, everybody with their whataboutisms these days, but what about Cincinnati is fair.
It is fair.
And so I think the most fair question you could have thrown at him was just straight up like, hey, Brett, like, he played for 2 years at Cincinnati. He didn't play for Texas Tech, so, like, what are you guys looking into Cincinnati here? Like, is there any investigation into what they actually knew? We know what they say they know, but have you guys done any deeper digging there? I think that would have been a great question. I think when it got wrapped into, and I'm not criticizing anybody's, Sean Dillon can do what he wants and ask his question the way that he wants. I just think you lose. First of all, you're not going to get any kind of real legitimate answer when you come at it with, like, the gotcha, the attitude that he brought to it. Like, I mean, he knows the energy that he was bringing to that, and you're going to get that energy in response generally.
Right.
Although I was still like, I think some people would have taken the bait more than Yormark did, So
it was funny that Yormark allowed himself to be kerfuffled. I think Yormark could have handled it better. Also, to Sean Dillon's credit, he was not misquoted. That was a whole ad campaign.
It was the ad. Yeah, it was the ad campaign versus
and Brett Yormark loved that commercial so much he stood on the stage and made us watch it twice at that Big 12 Media Days. Do you remember that?
What was that last year or 2 years?
In Arlington. It was the first year Yormark was here.
Okay.
They played the commercial, and he was like, I love that commercial so much, we're watching it again. So that was not misquoted. It was
That's funny. So it was like a deep cut from Sean Dillon. Okay.
Sean Dillon,
yeah, I mean, so this is why, I didn't want to jump to a ton of criticism for the question, but I would say, you know what you're generally going to get from that, and it's not going to be a serious – and I'm sitting here like, hey, there are serious things on the table here.
Right.
I don't think we need it to turn into this, personal – battle, because I truly don't. This is where Tech fans and I will probably be a little bit sideways. It's I think there are legitimate criticisms for the Big 12. I don't think it's some grand conspiracy that they took away tortillas because Texas Tech started drilling everybody last year. It's I was getting people telling me that. I'm like, guys, it's not some grand conspiracy because Texas Tech has been winning. Yes, are there underlying tensions because people don't like getting beat like that? But I'm like, at the conference office level, I don't think Brett Yormark is saying, hey, we have a team that's winning, so let's make sure and put them back in their place. I don't think it's not that serious. I think there are things to be critical for, but I think it's much more on a one-off basis than some grand conspiracy. And so that's where I get a little crosswise on this. I'm with you on some of the criticism. I'm not with you on the Charlie Day at the board in Always Sunny where he's connecting with the strings and everything's a big it's not that.
Maybe not at the Big 12 level. And the tortillas were banned by Texas Tech because of the fines before the winning started. That vote was happening before the winning started, but it's after the portal money. So I do think it is in response a little bit. But my thing is
you think the league office, you think Yormark is hey man, these guys are spending a bunch of money, so we got to curb them throwing tortillas?
Gene Taylor might be saying that.
Well, sure, but Gene Taylor's not running the league.
Yeah, but he's one of the guys that gets to put a vote forward, and there's 15 of those guys.
Man, I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch for me on the tortilla piece of it because
I'm
one
more
of the things
flexible than I look, John. I can make some stretches.
one of the things I didn't like on the question was because again I'm keep it to legit things.
Right.
The paddle thing, throw it. They're noisemakers. They're not chucking them on the field, dude. Come on,
right.
You lose me with that.
Yeah.
You lose me with that. So just there was a good question there. There are questions to be asked on behalf of Texas Tech.
Yes,
that is totally fine. I just think it could have been done more effectively if what you wanted was to actually accomplish some real. But I don't know that that's what the goal was, and that's fine.
All right, let's move past the Sean Dillon question. I do have a question on this. Now, the Burnerverse, the YouTube comment sections, it's a wasteland.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
I know that. But I do think there's a real disconnect between fan bases.
100%.
So let's get out of the Big 12 conference
100%.
world. Let's get out of Yormark's world. How do we, and we only have 2 minutes left here, how do we connect again? Because it just seems, I think Texas Tech is much closer to Utah now. People are saying we're like Texas, but I think we're much closer to Utah now and saying this conference, Monster Energy? We're selling our souls to Monster Energy.
Hey, you're wearing the hat right now, my friend.
I am a conference shill. I had my Big 12 hat. I forgot it at the apartment. So it just seems like there's, this rendezvous at the steakhouse. We're meeting. We're trying to get together. We're burying the hatchet. How does that happen amongst the common folk?
Boy, I don't know. And part of that is just society today in 2026, man. It's how do we do that with anybody that gets crosswise and into these, the tribalism thing we have going on? It's a really complex issue. And it is crazy because it's 2 years ago, man, we were all in the same boat. You go back to 2021, it's so many of these Tech, Oklahoma State, K-State, Iowa State, that group of 8 fan base is very similar, and it has changed really quickly. And so I understand why some resentment comes. But look, this is where you'll get me on your side. I read Cody Campbell's quote in there where he was like, hey, we like the Big 12. We just want everybody to get on board and start spending and stop trying to, drag us down to your level and try and elevate yourself. And I'm like, hell yeah, man.
Jamie Pollard?
Well, listen, man, I'm a K-State guy. I've been pretty critical of the athletic department. I think Colin Klein is a massive help in that because he's been in the SEC at A&M, and he's not going to let that slouch, and he's got the clout to bring everybody along at K-State. I think that was a huge hire for K-State because I think the athletic department's been behind in that. Yeah. And you can tell, Gene Taylor's quotes, I think he's an old school – these are old school college athletic administrators, and they don't want to get on board with that right now, and it has driven me crazy as a K-State guy. So I am – that part of it, I am with you. I am 1,000% with you. If they put in a spending floor like he suggested, dude, I'm on board.
All right. John, thank you for
Yes, sir.
joining us. We'll have some more time with you, I'm sure, today or in the future. We'll get you on talking
Anytime,
about Kansas
my
State.
friend.
I'm really excited about Colin Klein, too. I really am. I hope we can get him sometime. All right, that's it for us on this segment. We'll be back with Jamie Lentz on the other side. We'll talk more about Ross Dellinger's story and other things going on at Big 12 Media Days Live, brought to you by Cornet Equipment.
Definitely not the starters. You're on the End of the Bench podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back. 100.7 The Score. It is the End of the Bench. Rob Breaux alongside Jamie Lent here as we take you all the way till 6:30 on 100.7 The Score and Double T 97.3. Have a collection of myself, Jamie Lent, Choice Woodman, and young Brennan Riker as we move through today. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about what Texas Tech did yesterday, but we will also be talking about these schools that are out here today, including Arizona, Kansas, TCU. We'll see if we can potentially get a Sonny Dykes sighting on the radio this afternoon. We'll have Shehan Jayaraja in the 2 o'clock hour. Shehan will probably tell us about the piece he wrote last year about Texas Tech and Cody Campbell.
It was one of the very few that were positive, it feels like. So
certainly.
We appreciate that.
It does feel like we'll have that. This texter says, did the Texas Tech players and coaches all head home yesterday? Yes. 8 schools yesterday in attendance, 8 schools today. We've seen West Virginia players today, maybe an Arizona guy or two. Oh, there's Arizona right there. That is a tall son of a gun right there. Wow. You like that.
Yeah.
Number 71 for Arizona just walked by. That guy might be 6'10". What do you think? Bounds, number 71.
I'm going to go.
That is the most egregious angle. Brennan's been interviewing these players.
From his belt.
Yeah.
He's got to be 6'7" or 8.
Yeah, maybe so. Brennan says we might have chose the wrong person. That is awesome.
The good news is Raider Red is still here.
Yes, Raider Red. There was a live interview going on a couple tables down, and Raider Red got behind the camera and was doing this little thing, messing with them. And these guys broke, and they were like, all right, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I was laughing pretty good. He came and said hello to you too while we were doing John Kurtz as well. But
yes.
he didn't bother us as much as he did some other
I know.
tables.
He needed to get in our camera shot.
No, he was even behind the camera. He was just doing it for the love of the game. He wasn't even on camera. Oh, anyways, that was. I think we had a good day yesterday. I think we had some good interviews. Those interviews will be up on YouTube and the website. You can watch them, and some clips coming as well.
Yeah, I think Joey McGuire had a great day yesterday.
Yes.
I think that, it was interesting because we've talked about the fact that Joey McGuire is a really likable guy, and I think other coaches in the conference, I think media in this conference seem to always enjoy Coach McGuire. I think part of the reason for that is the fact that he's always gracious and is happy to do interviews. I don't think there's any doubt he does more with the local radio stations across the Big 12 than any other Big 12 coach. I mean, anybody that wants him seems to get him. And so I think that's great. But at the same time, I thought, the question was he going to be the same this time, with all that's gone on, or would he shy away from that? And he didn't shy away from anything. And I think that people had to have come away from that going, yeah, Joey McGuire he really is who he is. He's not fake. And again, he's not running from anything that's gone on this spring, this summer, whatever. So I think he had a great day. I think he came across really well yesterday.
I think yesterday, if there were 2 All-Stars, by the way, Yormark refusing to comment, Joey McGuire took every question about it.
Yes.
Everyone that asked him about Brennan Sorsby, we asked him, he answered. I'm sure every single radio interview, he was with the 365 guys, he answered them. Yahoo Sports did a story on it. Nicole Arbach said she was talking to him. So he answered a billion questions yesterday about Brennan Sorsby. Brett Yormark couldn't say one thing.
Yeah.
And that's telling to me. I will say this, though. I'm not going to be negative about anybody. We tried to get a few coaches on yesterday. We were rebuffed.
We were.
But it looked like Kalani Sitake and Joey Maguire bent over backwards trying to get everybody they could.
Yeah.
And it seems like not everyone was doing that, which I understand.
Yeah,
These guys are getting drug around, and I don't think it was the coaches that turned us down particularly with a couple of them. I think it was their handlers. And you're also trying to do some national stuff, and you've got pre-commitments. I'm not being negative here. I just think that Joey and Kalani Sitake are two of the very best at trying to do everything they can at these kind of media events. And not every coach is like that.
Yeah, and I think it was rather unfortunate that the folks at Oklahoma State couldn't find time for Eric Morris to join for his hometown.
It did seem like every time he crossed our table, he was like pointing back at us.
Yeah, I mean,
he
looked like he wanted to have a
conversation.
conversation. Yeah, was smiling, waving, "What's up, guys?" All that. So it didn't feel like that was a him decision.
And then I think Dave Aranda stiff-armed Brennan a couple times. It's just like, hey, not now. Maybe later. And then if you missed it yesterday, we also tried to get Brett Yormark yesterday. We need to have Brennan go find Rachel. Was it Rachel?
Yes.
We need to have Brennan go find Rachel.
Yeah.
We did see Yormark in the building. So if we can get Brett Yormark on this radio station, I would be ecstatic.
Yes, no doubt.
Certainly, I would love to talk to him. If it's you in choice, if it's Brennan in choice, if it's me, any collection of us, I think we could all ask two questions, and Yormark would either answer them or not answer them. But I think we could ask him in a way that would not be as maybe controversial or aggressive. But I do think there are some things that need to be said, and if it's pressing about, how do you bury the hatchet? What are you doing in this way? What are you doing in that way? And it's not – every time you say something, it's like the Big 12 fan bases are saying, oh, it's just the new Texas. It's like, no, we're not trying to do what Texas did. We just want a little respect because everyone's been so disrespectful to Texas Tech. It's not as begging to be treated better than you.
Right.
It's
same.
us asking to be treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's no begging going on, and there's no whining going on.
Nor telling them.
Kurtz
Here's
made
what
me
we're
bristle
gonna
a
do.
little bit saying whining because I don't think you're whining as much. Now, I will say, Jamie, you're not on Twitter as much as some of us.
Thank you. What a compliment that is, Rob. I really appreciate that.
I will say some of the
Thanks for noticing.
Maybe some of the tech burners are a little whiny.
Yes.
But that's every
No
that is
question.
every fan base.
100%.
And I wouldn't say that the tech burners are any worse than anyone else. So I actually quite enjoy the tech burners.
It's good.
I don't have a burner, but
Okay.
maybe I get one and start razzing some people. I don't know. I just razz them with my face on the screen.
Yeah, you could be the flying mammal again.
Again? What do you mean again? That wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
This section says the other schools have players in pads and uniforms. Last year was warm-ups, right? So in the morning, everyone's in pads and uniforms, every school, and they go back and they shoot Big 12 commercials,
Little
basically.
hype videos
Yeah,
and stuff.
every TNT broadcast, all the ESPN Plus broadcasts, if you ever see a Big 12 player like the Monday Night Football song, yeah, they're doing or the let's go kind of stuff, that's all filmed at Media Day. So they are doing things in their jerseys and uniforms. It's not just, hey, let's parade them around like cattle in their jersey and uniforms. Mm-hmm. And then they go change into their warm-ups or suits. I think Colorado was in suits yesterday. Tech did the polo and pants, which I think is a nice look.
That's the way I would want to go.
Cliff always did the suits.
Okay,
Had his
not
guys in
surprising.
suits. And then the left tackle one year ripped his suit pants.
Okay.
And so he was in jeans. He was in jeans and a blazer.
Okay.
And somebody asked him, and he's like, "Oh no, I didn't want to wear my jeans. I just ripped my pants."
There's a reason to switch right there.
I thought that was funny. Lucky he had jeans, I guess. I don't know if he was bringing other things.
Well, that was probably for the flight back.
This section says, I saw someone posted that Tech officials and Big 12 officials met last night at dinner. Any truth to that? I think the Ross Dellinger report was that they met last Tuesday. But yes, Big 12 officials and Texas Tech officials have met, and it's also the Kansas president. It's the whole contingent. That Big 12 group your mark, some of the presidents at the top, and the Texas Tech contingent.
So that makes you wonder a little bit, Rob, if it was last Tuesday, why an answer yesterday couldn't have been,
right?
Hey, we've already started in this process of kind of burying the hatchet. We've had meetings. We feel like we've made progress. We're on our way to getting that done. Both sides are, happy with the progress we're making.
Couldn't you just throw a little bone?
Yeah. Instead of making it sound like what you did yesterday is, I'm still so upset with this group that I can't even talk about them.
Hour number 2 coming up. 100.7 The Score is the end of the bench live at Big 12 Media Days presented by Cornet Equipment.
Playing time is not required. This is the End of the Bench podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Of The Score is the end of the bench. Rob Breaux, Jamie Lent, joined now by Jamie Plunkett of Frogs Insider, TCU podcast, Frog Preacher on Twitter, TCU podcast with Dave Campbell's, Base 12, Big 12 baseball podcast and website, Substack. Great work there. Also, I think you're with 24/7. How many hats do you wear nowadays?
Too many.
Okay, all right. Just it seems like every time I turn around, you're doing something new with somebody else. But that's great. You have a great platform there with TCU. I do have some questions about the TCU roster, what to expect from TCU, that normal media stuff. But in the wake of the injunction, there was an article by ESPN, and Sonny Dykes really had some, I would say, powerful words directed at Texas Tech, calling out the integrity of the game is at stake and all of this stuff. I do appreciate TCU's head coach there, Sonny Dykes, who has a life here in Lubbock and involved with Texas Tech to some capacity over the years. I appreciate that he put his name by that. What was the response, and have you heard him kind of back that up in the week since?
I think the response from TCU folks was a lot of agreement. I think, when you talk about the TCU fan base and their approach to the Sorsby issue and to the challenges that have been out in Lubbock this offseason, it's pretty in lockstep with what you've seen from other schools in the Big 12 where, there's an agreement that he shouldn't play. And, I think there's a larger issue at hand when it comes to Brendan Sorsby. There's a conflation maybe of multiple issues when it comes to addiction versus illegal gambling versus all the other things that were going on in that situation. And there were some pieces that I think Texas Tech handled really, really well. There are some other things that I think maybe too many lawyers got involved, and that can disrupt some things from time to time.
Maybe any lawyers involved,
right? Yeah. So one lawyer is one too many. But I think from a TCU standpoint, Sonny was kind of speaking the voice of the fan base, the thoughts of the fan base at that point. And I agree with you. I'm glad he wasn't one of the anonymous guys that he put his name on it. He's always willing to do that. He's always pretty open about his opinions on things. I'm sure today when he's up on stage, he's going to say exactly what he's thinking and feeling as well. But I don't think it was anything too crazy or out of line. I know that the debate around this issue has been pretty heated, though, and so I can understand why some folks in Lubbock maybe didn't appreciate it as much, especially with his connections out there.
I understood it. It just seemed like it was quick. And that was my whole thing with a lot of these quotes and comments and stories. Brendan Sorsby had never played for Texas Tech. And I guess the expectation after the injunction was that he would certainly play for Texas Tech. And I don't think there was any quick thought on Texas Tech's side to say, no, not playing at all. They were kind of taking it slow as well. But it just seemed like a really quick comment. But I do appreciate he put his name on it, and I didn't think he was wrong. I didn't think he was wrong.
Jamie, at the same time, just kind of put yourself in the TCU fan base kind of thought process. What were their thoughts or their take at the same time on how everything's been handled with Cincinnati and really there not being much push towards them?
That's a great question. I think when we talk about Brendan Sorsby's history, and obviously all of this illegal gambling took place at Indiana and Cincinnati. If you feel like there's relevant information that can be dug up to understand what Indiana and Cincinnati knew while he was on their rosters, then you should probably go investigate that. I think TCU fans find that to be a pretty reasonable take to say, well, yeah, obviously the situation didn't start 2 months ago when he got to Lubbock. Mm-hmm. This has been an ongoing situation for multiple years. Why don't we take a look at that whole that whole spread of time.
Yeah.
And go
not just the last few
right,
months.
and go figure out, what was going on, who knew what when, and are there any repercussions for knowing or not knowing, right? But at the same time, I think for TCU fans, it's really fun to pile on Texas Tech. There's that really fun rivalry there.
Yeah, absolutely. We get it.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the Saddle currently resides in Fort Worth for TCU fans.
That is
That
true.
might change come Thanksgiving Day, but who knows?
We'll see.
But yeah, no, I think TCU fans have been pretty reasonable and rational. Not on X maybe, but in the real world.
Who is, though, on X?
Yeah,
There's a few that I might comment on.
There's a difference between the anonymous Twitter TCU accounts and TCU fans. And so for TCU fans, I think the ones that I've spoken to have been mostly rational and reasonable when it comes to that.
All right, who is TCU this year? Who's the new quarterback? He's a Harvard guy. I would expect him to be pretty smart in the pocket, I guess. And then some other new faces that maybe you're replacing a guy like Bud Clark and some of these other guys.
Yeah, so not only do they have Jaden Craig from Harvard as a new quarterback, they have a new offensive coordinator. And, this is going to sound like a foreign language to the Mike Leach tree folks out there and the Sonny Dykes folks out there, but this is a pro-style zone read running offense. And so this is quite a departure from the spread RPO stuff that TCU ran under Briles and even prior to that under Garrett Riley. And what Sonny's been really familiar with over the course of his career. So pretty big pivot offensively this year. We're going to see a lot of that zone read to the outside edges. Jeremy Payne and John Denman are going to be the two feature backs in that offense there. And then, Gordy Samus, the new offensive coordinator, is also an offensive line coach. So I think we're going to see more disciplined offensive line play. That's been a big criticism from TCU fans over the last few years. Red zone efficiency and turnovers have been big critiques as well. I think he's going to be able to address both of those. He came from UConn. UConn turned the ball over 2 times last year, 1 pick and one fumble. So a little bit more discipline, ball control, and efficiency, I think, is what we can expect offensively. Defensively, it's the same 4-2-5 that Andy Avalos has been running for 3 years now. I think they've got a really veteran defensive line, so you're going to see some more exotic fronts from them this year. A lot of really good edge play with guys like Paul Oyewale, who missed 2024 with the torn knee and came back last year and played pretty well. And then, backside of that defense, I think Jamel Johnson is the name to know at safety. Led TCU in interceptions last year with 5, led TCU in passes defended, and has really started to take over that vocal leadership role as well from Bud Clark, who has been the heart and soul of that defense for the last few years.
So, obviously, the terrific season for Coach Dykes, and they play in the national championship game and all that. Since then, it feels like there have been a lot of solid years, but maybe, I don't know, the expectations of getting back there, too much to ask, whatever. It doesn't always feel like the TCU fan base has been as high on Coach Dykes. What is the confidence level with him in that position now?
I think if we're going out of maybe a 10, I'd say it's probably a 7-ish confidence level right now. Back-to-back 9-win seasons. You look at that on its surface and you say that's pretty good.
Yep.
Then you kind of start to dissect it a little bit more and you say, okay, well, they beat these non-conference opponents that were all under 500. Their record against Big 12 teams, all of their wins came against teams that were mostly under 500. And those above that top quarter of the league, those games didn't go necessarily as well for the Frogs the last 2 years. And so how many empty wins are in there versus how many competitive wins over teams with life are really in those 18 wins over the past 2 seasons. I think that's where the criticism starts to come in, is how can TCU, who has seemed to set a pretty good floor for itself, take that next step and get back to 10 wins, 11 wins. And, you look at their schedule this year, it breaks out really nicely early in the season, and then that November comes around and it's Kansas State, Utah, and Texas Tech. So we're going to see in crunch time again in November how TCU and Sonny Dykes are going to be able to step up.
Yeah, I don't think Sonny Dykes is on the hot seat, but how long can you go 8-4 at TCU? I mean, it does seem like that is a program who is trying to be better, and it doesn't feel like 8-4 is good enough.
No, it doesn't, and I don't think 8-4 is good enough for the administration either. You think about, where we were a couple years ago, and when Texas and Oklahoma left, there was that conversation around, all right, well, who's going to take over? Who's going to step up and kind of be that brand, that team that can run the league? And there were conversations about Kansas State. There were conversations about TCU. There were conversations about a couple different schools. But TCU was in that mix, right, for, okay, this can be the brand. And it's never been realized outside of the 2022 run to the national championship. So hopefully they can get back to that. It's going to take some little tweaks here and there, paying attention to the details. I think the Gordy Samus hire on offense was a big step in that direction. So hopefully they can get it done in 2026.
All right, that was Jamie Plunkett with Frogs Insider. You can find him at Frog Preacher on Twitter, talking TCU, talking Big 12 baseball. More after this with Choice Woodman and Jamie Lentz on the End of the Bench live from Big 12 Media Days, brought to you by Cornet Equipment.
Playing time is not required. This is the End of the Bench podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Thrilled to be with you this morning from Frisco. It is Big 12 Media Days coverage on Double T 97.3 and 100.7 The Score. That's presented by our friends over at Cornet Equipment. Jamie Lent to my left. I'm Choice Woodman. Brennan and Rob running around like their heads cut off. Like chickens with their heads cut off, I guess.
I think that's the same.
Yes. Y'all keep your thoughts, your comments, your predictions, questions, whatever you got. Bring it all in on the Yates Flooring Center chat line through that 100.7 The Score mobile app. So, we were talking before we went to break about, are we overconfident as Texas Tech fans? Are we too confident that Texas Tech's going to win this league? This is probably not, apt timing on all of this, but it never will be anymore in Lubbock. If you were a betting man, Jamie, how confident would you be in betting that Texas Tech's going to win the Big 12 championship? Like if you had money to be loose with.
Let me say this. I think I would take the bet Texas Tech versus the league.
Okay, that's probably the best way to put it. Would you take Texas Tech or the field?
I think I would take Texas Tech over the field.
I think that's a great way to put it. And I think I would too. And the general rule of thumb is take the field on that sort of bet.
Sure.
In general, if someone gives you this versus the field, you take the field because it's 15 chances against one chance. Mm-hmm. But obviously that's how confident and how much better you think Texas Tech is.
So the question that I have, Choice, is what could change that? What could change my confidence level of Texas Tech winning this conference? And to me, there's only one thing that could change that.
I think we're in the same boat here.
I mean, it's an injury to Hammond.
It's the quarterback. Yep.
Yep.
If you lose, and that's where I guess the confidence can be thin, because it's pretty strong confidence, but it can cut off fast because you don't have depth at quarterback.
Yeah.
If
we say an injury, and we mean like long-term injury.
What Joey McGuire said in several interviews and everywhere yesterday was that if Will Hammond wouldn't have gotten hurt, you wouldn't have had Brennan Sorsby. He said that, basically. He said you would have gone and got another quarterback, but it wouldn't have been Brennan Sorsby. You're not going and getting a number one guy out there. Now, you got Kirk Francis. My guess is you would have gotten someone that would have competed with Will Hammond, someone that would have been around the same level of play.
So who?
So a strong number two, because most of the time, most seasons in Lubbock and elsewhere in today's football,
at least two.
You're going to use them in real minutes.
Can you give me an example, Choice, of a quarterback that?
I would say probably the guy that TCU just got, Jaden Craig.
Okay.
I think that would have been a real option. He's their starter.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have competed for a starting job here. Mm-hmm. But I think that's kind of the realm. You're not going getting the number one quarterback in the portal.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have it's just so the situation changes everything, right?
Sure it does.
Because if he hadn't gotten hurt, we would have seen more from him last year.
Quite a bit more, yeah, because he played in 20-point wins every game.
A lot more from him, and so we would have been either more confident or less confident.
So we don't know for sure. You're right. You're right.
I would tell you after the Utah game last year, I was confident in him. And as we moved forward, we saw games where I was less confident in him.
That's fair.
Okay. And, somebody on the chat line earlier had mentioned, Utah wasn't his coming out party. TCU the year before was his coming out party. Well, he was really good up until he wasn't. And down the stretch in that game, I mean, him dropping back to pass and just dropping the football was where it started to fall back in the wrong direction for you. And then down the stretch after that, not great, not fantastic, okay? So ultimately it led to the fumble at the end of the game that was, you lose the football game. So
and there was some conservativeness from down the stretch, too.
He was also a freshman. He was also a freshman.
Both years.
Okay.
If you want to get technical.
Yeah, so I don't know. It would have been if you were heading into this season, let's just say we had only saw what we saw, and we knew he was going to be healthy, but we only saw what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
I, for one, would have said you need to get a starting quarterback. Okay? Will Hammond's not quite ready yet. Okay? I would have said that. It would have been hard for me to believe that this coaching staff would have put together such a highly talented roster and that they wouldn't have thought we need to make sure we're not just okay, but really good at the position on the field that we all know is the most important usually.
The other part of that factors in.
Okay, go ahead.
Is what happened in Miami. The other part that factors into what you're saying, if you didn't hang a zero, if you didn't have the rough offensive day that you did, I mean, that all factors into me. Now, you start these recruiting processes, I'm sure, before that. So
if we had never saw Will Hammond the rest of the season and what we saw in Miami says to you, we got to be better at quarterback.
That's what I'm kind of
And so that kind of pushing. Okay.
I think that would have factored in, too.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because you're like, we're a quarterback away. Because I've seen people write that Texas Tech was a quarterback away last year. Man, I don't know that that's fair because so much is judged on Baron Morton's worst game of his career, which just happened to happen in the – and Oregon deserves a bunch of credit. There's all sorts that goes into that, but it was literally the worst game of Baron Morton's career.
And again, if you're watching the game and you're watching the replay and you're watching the highlights, there's no receivers open.
Yeah,
there's no receivers open.
And the very few times there were, he didn't see them, So with that, I agree. Back to the original part. Mm-hmm. That's where I agree with you. I am extremely confident as long as Will Hammond is upright, as long as Will Hammond is your guy going forward, I'm very confident you're going to win the Big 12 Conference. And I think most Red Raider fans are in that boat. I don't speak for everybody, as someone's insinuating on the chat line. I get that there's some that have more reservations than that. But I think you're there, I'm there, Rob's there. Most Red Raiders are pretty darn confident you're going to win the Big 12 Conference. I'm just posing the question, are we overconfident because of the history of preseason picks? Here's why, Jamie, I think that we're not overconfident. Most years, the preseason favorite is not as heavily favored as Texas Tech. You have to go back to 2023 when Texas won the league. They were a pretty heavy favorite to win the Big 12 Conference. You have to go back to those Oklahoma teams where they're pretty heavy favorites to win the conference. They're picked preseason, and so I think it does line up. The confidence matches how heavily favored this team is. You look, and I'm going Vegas numbers here, but you look at the numbers there, you are by far the heaviest favorite to win your conference compared to other leagues. People will point to, that's because the Big 12 it doesn't matter. You're still the heaviest favorite in what's in front of you. So I do think it matches up there. Texas Tech's a heavy favorite. There's reason for confidence. And, I mean, we're sitting here listening to a lot of players and tell us that the defense is even better than it was last year or could be even better than it was last year.
Man, I have a hard time believing it, but if it's anywhere close, I'm going to be happy.
Anywhere close. I mean, you can be a top 15 defense this year. You were top 3 in the country last year.
I mean, you could give up 5 points a game more and still be really, really good.
Again, your point spread last year was the least you won a game by outside of The Arizona State game was 22 points. That's the smallest number you won a game by. It was an unbelievably dominant season. I don't know that you're going to be that dominant every game. I think there will be some where it's more of the same. Whole lot of thoughts from you on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. We'll visit those coming up next. Some agreement, disagreement. You can share yours there. This is the end of the bench portion of our coverage here in Frisco. Big 12 Media Days action on Double T 97.3 and 100.7 The Score.
Playing time is not required. This is the End of the Bench podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Happy to be part of your hump day. This is the end of the bench portion of our Big 12 Media Days coverage. 100.7 The Score, Double T 97.3 on site. All our coverage here from Frisco presented by Cornet Equipment. They'll have Jamie driving in a tractor before too long.
Let's go.
Have you ever driven a tractor of any sort?
Don't think so.
Bet we can rectify that at some point.
I'm sure I could handle it.
I need some work done around my house, so.
Oh, yeah. You have a tractor.
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, we know where you
I
can
have
get
friends
one.
with tractors, and yeah, Cornet Equipment. I'll
That's
hook you up. He's Jamie. I'm Choice. We've been talking about our confidence level in Texas Tech winning the Big 12 championship, and I do say "are" because someone on the chat line says, "Can we replace we with Choice on this question?" I get that I'm confident, but I know I'm not the only one. I don't, like I said, I don't speak for everybody, but most out there are fairly confident, at least in Red Raider circles, that Texas Tech's going to repeat as Big 12 champions.
Well, I mean, just look at the national perception.
Yeah.
I think the national folks are fairly confident as well.
Yeah, I don't know that everybody in the Big 12 is bowing down and every fan base saying Tech's going to win it all, but I think a lot are picking Texas Tech that way. This texter says Tech will lose at least 3 games this year. Now y'all cite, and then in parentheses, now y'all cite them being odds-on favorites. We already did, thank you. USA was favored versus Belgium. USA was a ever-so-slight favorite against Belgium. Texas Tech is a massive favorite to win the Big 12 championship. But tailor it to however you want on your conversation.
Yeah, it feels a little
this
bit
This is our
different.
troll here, too.
Mm-hmm.
Any comment on Cincinnati and the NCAA announcing an investigation on gambling by Sorsby while at Cincinnati? From Cincinnati, I should have said. Scott Satterfield's on behind us as we speak, so we'll learn things here in a few minutes on what he says. During the break, we could kind of hear a question about Texas Tech, and it sounded like he's giving the answer we expected, right? Just kind of they did a great job investigating at Tech and this and that. So we'll find out if he actually makes any comments.
Yeah, I do think that was really interesting about the article that we saw from last night that talked about the fact that that there was a meeting last Tuesday between Texas Tech higher-ups in the athletic department and also the Big 12 Conference and the commissioner, and also in that article talked about the fact that there is apparently going to be some investigation that goes on with Cincinnati.
But from the NCAA, not the Big 12.
Not
right?
the Big 12, correct. And so it'll be interesting to find out if they find anything out.
Yeah.
I, for one, am thrilled to hear that that's something that's happening.
At least there's something happening. No,
Yeah.
Do we learn anything?
Do
they just
do
say?
we feel any better about things if Cincinnati is, hit with any kind of punishment? If we find out that there was proof that they knew more than what they've let on at this point, I certainly would.
Yeah,
I certainly would.
They should. That's the reality of it. Every bit of flack Texas Tech took, you can argue whether it was fair or not. But the fact that Cincinnati didn't get jack diddly squat towards them is ridiculous. That the rest of the league did not push any towards Cincinnati. That's where I won't feel better.
Mm-hmm.
No one else in the league pushed against Cincinnati. Cincinnati never should have been part of those votes towards Texas Tech. That's the part that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
they should have recused themselves, or the league should have said, hey, y'all need to sit this one out because you are involved too. Mm-hmm. If Texas Tech's not part of the votes, Cincinnati surely shouldn't have been part of those votes. But so I'll feel a little bit better, yes. If there's anything that went on there, I believe there was. Do I think the NCAA will uncover? I don't know. Almost always the NCAA doesn't initiate investigations. They have to have someone, either the FBI tell them about something, or I don't know if this is Texas Tech or the Big 12, say, hey, y'all need to look into this. But, yeah, I don't know how much better I'll feel about any of it. President Aggie says, yeah, my answer is yes, choice. We are being overconfident. Mainly because of the quarterback situation, we came to appreciate Morton after a few games without him. Hopefully Hammond can become what we hope, but he is unproven.
Yeah.
Fair. It's all fair. But I do state every bit of what we've seen from Will Hammond is freshman Will Hammond up to this point. So it's, I wouldn't call it blind hope, but there is some faith you're putting into him growing as a quarterback, as a player, just by age and by experience. And that's why I think, I've seen some wondering, Jamie, okay, even if he's ready game one, are you playing him game one? I think absolutely. You need him to be, if he is ready to go in week one.
You want him to have that experience.
You need experience for that young man. And then game two, you need that road experience in Corvallis, Oregon. So as soon as Will Hammond is cleared by doctors, and Joe McGuire kind of, insinuated, we'll get him out there. If it's up to me, week one is where we're going. So I'm hoping that's the case. It's okay as long as confidence doesn't turn into arrogance, and I want Joey to run the score up on every team associated with someone that ran their mouth about Tech. That is what I think all of our fan base would like, especially as an alum. Okay.
Well, and also to be clear, Choice and Jamie's confidence or arrogance shouldn't affect the football team at all.
Yeah, I don't think they're.
Yeah, I don't.
My confidence or arrogance or whatever you want to call it. Jamie's confidence that Texas Tech's going to win every game on the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should not have an effect on the football team. Thomas says, definitely agree it was one of his worst games. However, his worst game, in my opinion, was against Baylor in 2024 in Lubbock, and the other time Baylor was at the Jones. One of those was Tyler Shuck, right? Baron Morton's. One of those games was Shuck, I thought. Maybe I'm just mixing up the teams and how bad the game was against Oregon.
Right.
The Greens. I don't know. But, yeah, the Baylor wasn't good. Oklahoma State wasn't good. Was that – but there may have been some Donovan Smith involved in that OSU game too. I can't remember who started. I'll give you that you are the favorite, but they don't play them on paper. Absolutely true. 100% true. But like we talked about, there's a difference between favorite and heavy favorite. If you bet Tech to win the Big 12, that's the same as taking Tech against the field. How is that better said? Come on. I just think it's a better way to word the question. Sorry. I thought it was good. I thought you were good, Jamie.
Thanks.
I was very happy for you. Why are so many people negative about the Big 12? What can we do to change the national perception?
I think it's winning more games in the playoff.
That's what it comes down to.
Right now, the perception is that your league can't compete at the highest level, and so you've got to win more games in the playoff to get that done. Even a win or two here and there in the regular season against an SEC opponent or a Big Ten opponent isn't going to get it done for you.
I think
it's got to be in the playoff. I
think you're right, Jamie, but the problem is, like, there's a rooted perception against the Big 12. The problem goes deep. Those roots dig deep. Because guess what? TCU won a game in the 4-team playoff that they weren't supposed to against Michigan. They did. But they go and get housed by Georgia the next game, and everybody forgets about that win against Michigan. Mm-hmm. People have forgotten it. If Michigan would have gone and got housed by Georgia, like I think they probably would have.
Sure.
I don't know if they're giving up 65 or whatever it is, but they would have done that. People would forget about it because they're Michigan, they're the Big Ten. There's a rooted perception that I think only one true thing will pull up those roots, and it's winning a national championship for this league for someone not named Texas or Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone's got to go win it all to really dig it up.
At the very least, be deep into the playoff and not get just run out of the joint.
And I think the other thing would be multiple teams going deep into the playoff. Yeah, if there's a couple teams that went there, maybe get to the semifinals. If you had 2 of the last 4 teams standing, that would probably help. But, yeah, you've got to dig up those roots that unfortunately are deep against the Big 12 Conference.
This has been the End of the Bench podcast from 100.7 The Score. Go to 107thescore.com for more from the Double T Sports Network.